Hi, welcome back to Through Nikki's Lens. I am Nikki and I'm here with another video for you today. In my last video, I'll put a link to that video above. I explained that I would go a little bit more into what the BC PNP Provincial Nomination Program is, specifically in relation to the International Graduate Stream. A lot of persons right now are trying to figure out how they're going to stay in Canada and become a permanent resident. Or there are persons that are even inside of their home country, outside of Canada, and trying to migrate to Canada or immigrate to Canada as a permanent resident. But there is a big challenge, a big blockage, as some persons might consider it, simply due to the fact that the minimum scores for the rounds of invitations that IRCC has been doing in recent times, they have been pretty high, and that's for the express entry system. So on January 10th, 2024, IRCC did a general draw of the rounds of invitations. That's the express entry rounds of invitations. And the minimum cutoff score was 446. That is pretty high compared to some years ago when the scores were in like the 300s and sometimes would go into the 400s. But there is a solution for persons to exceed the minimum scores in the rounds of invitations for express entry, and that is to apply for a provincial nomination where you will get 600 extra points and almost guarantee that you will get an invitation to apply for permanent residency in the next rounds of invitations that IRCC conducts. So what I will discuss in this video is to take you through what the registration dashboard looks like, and specifically for the express entry option for the international graduate stream. And after you get that invitation to apply, what does the other parts of the application look like? Specifically, I will show you what the dashboard is like, how it is set up, the information that is required from an applicant, as well as to go into the various factors that make up what your final score will be for once you do a registration. I will look at the required documents and just briefly show you what my profile looks like. So let's get into it. I wanted to show you once you start a registration to get a profile in, you create your login information, or you create your login, and put in personal details. You have two options: skilled immigration, which would be for persons who are interested in being nominated by the province as individuals, as workers. And then there are entrepreneurs that may want to invest and manage their business, so they apply through the entrepreneur immigration category. So since I was an international student, I will select the skills immigration option, and there are streams in relation to the express entry BC. If you have a profile already in express entry, or if someone chooses to apply for PR but they don't want to use an express entry profile, then they would apply through the PR portal after BC gives them the nomination or approves their nomination request. So since we have been talking about the international graduate stream, I will go ahead and select the international graduate stream and create a profile there. So the stream requirements are listed, and you must ensure that you have your express entry profile number as well as your job seeker validation code. You get these two piece of information once you have a valid profile in the express entry pool. You would also need to know what your express entry score is, and you put that in. You have an eligible degree, diploma, certificate that you received within the last 3 years from a BC PNP eligible post-secondary institution in Canada. And it doesn't mean that you have to have studied in British Columbia to qualify. You have an offer that is full time and it doesn't have an end date in the not categories 1, 2, or 3 from a BC eligible employer, valid English and French language proficiency results if applicable, and the wage that you are offered or you're getting in your current job meets or exceeds the minimum income requirements. You have or you're eligible for legal immigration status in Canada. So that means that people who are currently in Canada can apply as well as those outside of Canada. You intend to live and work economically established in BC. Your employer meets all the general employer requirements. And if you have any questions or concerns, you definitely will have to go through the BC profile guide. And there's a technical guide as well. Get more information, know what it is that you need to do, and you check that I confirm that I qualify for the stream, and you start your application. So the information you put in your registration, the details will populate here. If you need to edit anything in your profile, you go ahead and click edit profile. If you use you want to now use a representative, you select add representative and you proceed. So it's loading, you put in your information. So it requires registrant, that's you. You won't put in any family information at this point, but when you get the invitation to apply, you will need to. So you put in your education, your work experience, your job offer, language, and there is a submit button. At the bottom here, you can print the application. So the information that you put in for your records purposes, you can print that and save it as a PDF. You can go back once you get to education or any other tab. You can select previous to go back, and it says where you are, the registrant tab. You can select next to move to the education page. You can save, validate, or exit the application, and you can always come back. What I want to point out too, once you fill in the information, you don't need to hit submit to know what your score is. The score at the time where you are at the part of the application that you are. So you can always check. You are not blindly submitting an application and hoping that you qualify, or trying to figure out what your score will be, but you will see your scores before you actually get to the submit section. So you fill in your personal information and you go through the application. You move on to the education section. You fill in all the necessary information that they ask you for your highest level of education, the date that you completed the highest level of education that you have. Did you obtain the education in Canada? Do you have an education credential assessment? So if you had, say for example, a previous credential, you need to indicate if you got that evaluated by one of the credential assessment organizations, and if you meet the requirements for an eligible professional designation. If your job, your field that you're in requires for you to be designated, you need to indicate that. And you move on to putting in your work experience. Identify if you have directly related work experience to within in the same NOC tier category or higher, to the one that you're using as your main NOC, and this should have been in the last 10 years, and it should include a job offer. So you would select yes if that's the case, and if you don't have any directly related work experience, you select no. You will get points for having directly related work experience. So you put in information about the job offer, put in the necessary information, and this is information that you would readily have. You will fill in information about your language, the tests that you have done. If you have an English language proficiency test done in the past 2 years, you select yes. If you did French, you select, and then you go to the submit. You declare and consent. You still tick or check the box here, and you notify if you have a paid representative or not, and then you go ahead and submit your application. Sorry. So that the previous page would have been what you would see once you're registering then. And just to show you what my actual scores were, as I explained, I got a total of 106, which I shouldn't have gotten so much because of two factors. And your scores are based on several factors. So there are two categories, and the first is human capital factors. You get up to 120 points. And economic factors, you have an opportunity to get up to 80 points. And under human capital factors, directly related work experience, you get points for that. Experience in Canada. So if you are outside of Canada and you get a job offer and you have never had any relevant work experience, then you obviously wouldn't get any points for that. I didn't get any because of the time that I registered, which was just a few months after starting working in Canada as well as a worker, temporary foreign worker. That was after I finished my studies. If you're currently working in the job that you have the offer for, then you would also get points for that. Your highest level of education, you get points for that. Language, you get points. I think the maximum is 30 points. So the better you do, you can maximize that section. If you have proficiency in both English and French, then you will get points. I don't have proficiency in French, so I didn't get any points for that. And you have a subtotal of this section. Then the economic factors takes into consideration your hourly wage, the PNP areas. So if you live in specific areas in BC that's outside of the Metro Vancouver area, I'm not sure if there are any other areas in BC that are excluded. But for sure, there is a list. You check the BC PNP program guide or the technical guide, and to see what areas qualify for you. If you're living in those areas or have a job offer, I suppose, in those areas, you would get points. For work experience, regional work experience, or regional alumni, if you studied or worked in particular areas in British Columbia, you also get points. And then the grand total score for your registration. We are halfway through the video, and I just want to encourage you to like the video, to subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so, share the video with someone who might find it beneficial to understand what the BC PNP nomination application is like, what the process is like, and just someone that is curious or maybe in the process of registering to get a nomination from a province, and specifically from the BC PNP program. So let's move now into the other parts that will become open to you once you get an invitation to apply from British Columbia. So just off the bat, you will see that family is one of the sections that you wouldn't have seen in the registration section. Attachments. So when you're registering, you don't get to submit any documents. So once you get that invitation to apply, the information that you had in your registration profile gets pre-populated into this section, and you validate and you move on. So it asks you questions about your current or previous immigration applications for Canada, and I think maybe externally. I don't remember for sure, but you would read through and answer accordingly. Asking if you're currently living in Canada, so your current status in Canada. If you say no, then you wouldn't need to put in certain information. If you say yes, then you need to indicate what your current status is and details about you, your personal details. Then you still go to next, or you can navigate through at the top. You put in the necessary information, validate them, your work experience, and then what was new for this part is information about your family, including if you're currently married or in a common law relationship. You select whatever applies to you. I don't want to expose too much of my information that it will take more time for me to redact the information, so I will not scroll down. My apologies in advance. So you will give information about your spouse if you're married, about your child if you have, sorry, your spouse if you're in a relationship, your child or children if you have, and information about the job offer and attachments. So the documents that are required would be your immigration records, whatever shows your previous as well as your current status in Canada. So my study permit, my work permit, the biographical page of your passport, your current photograph, if you have a driver's license, if your work permit was issued based on a positive LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment, you would put that document there, your language test. If you did French, there is another option to put in that result, your current up-to-date and very detailed resume with all the job duties and responsibilities listed as they're listed in your job description for the job that you have or the job offer that you have, all your work experiences in the last 10 years. If you assessed your credentials, say for example, your peer, you have a master's in Canada, but you had previous qualifications in your home country, you'll get that assessed and you include that certificate. Any certificates required for the job, you would indicate yes or no and put whatever certificates you have. So my MBA, my bachelor's degree, your transcript. If you had a professional designation related to the field you're in, you put in that necessary document. And if you claim that you live in whatever areas in British Columbia that qualify as regional experience, work experience, or regional alumni, you studied in those areas as well, you put any evidence that proves those claims, information about your spouse, their status in Canada, their most two recent pay stubs, their employment information, their employment letter, the documents that are required from your employer. They complete that form, that's the employer declaration form, the recommendation letter that states, okay, I am recommending that this person get a nomination from British Columbia. Just sing your praises, how good you are based on how you worked with them before, or if you just got a job offer, then they would explain why they want you to come and work with them, the contributions that you have made, or I guess the contribution they feel you will make, um, your job offer, your detailed job description, and you will get these documents from your employer. You would have gotten them. So if you got them already, you don't need to get a current letter, because that's not what it's asking for. It's your signed job offer letter. So your employer gave you an offer, you had to sign and send it back to them. That's the document you need to put there. They would have also given you a job description. You put that information there. Evidence of recruitment in this case may be just for people who have gotten an LMIA job offer from their employer. You would state the evidence that they did, whatever they did to recruit you. Your company information, it could be a one-page document that talks about the industry that your company is in, the history of the company, and other necessary and important information. Their certificate of incorporation, as well as their municipal business license. And you move on. As I said, you can go next or go back to the top. So you move on, and you declare that the information you gave in the application, or you're given in the application, is truthful, complete, and correct. And please ensure that they are, and that you understand that if there are any misrepresentations, false statements, concealment, or withholding information, inconsistencies between your registration profile and your application, then that may result in the province refusing your application or canceling your nomination. If after the fact they realize that you misrepresented or withheld information, they can cancel your nomination. So this is quite serious, and that's why I got the notice of procedural fairness email from the province, as I explained in my previous video, because there were inconsistencies between my registration profile and my application that I submitted. So you do your declarations, you indicate if you have a paid representative, and you acknowledge their refund policy, that applications fee will only be refunded if you withdraw your application before the province begins to assess it. In my case, I did withdraw my application, request by email for them to withdraw my application, because that's the only way that you can do that. But they started to process the application, and I was not able to get a refund. So you're acknowledging that you can't get a refund.
Once you continue to like my videos, it will put my videos in a better position for persons, for a wider reach at least, for persons to get information that they might be looking for. Thank you so much for making it through Nikki's Lens, and I'll definitely see you in my next video.